this one is not over there. I just figure I keep swapping them out. I don't have my rule book.
You know what the infection totals in the county is?
Was it 110 or something? How many people are infected in the county? I don't know.
Last time I read it was 110, back a few days ago.
There were 9 yesterday. There were 9.
So that, wow. Is that our Thanksgiving long? Who knows?
We'd have to talk to Dr. Karshner.
Is he the health department?
He's the area, the Rappahannock.
How are we doing on time?
1 minute.
Depends on which clock you look at. Oh, wait a minute, let's go to one of those ones that, yeah, we're a minute away.
1 minute.
1 minute.
Y'all count to 60. Again, calling this meeting of the Rappahannock County Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Bill Pekelman, you're here. Steph Ritter, Alex Sharp, I'm here. Ron Mackler, and Julie Kuntz. The first item is to adopt the agenda. Are there any changes or modifications or additions, deletions?
I'd like to, and it won't take us long to discuss it, but add something under new business in the area of rules of procedure.
Does that suit everybody? Is there a motion to adopt the agenda with that addition to new business?
I so move.
Steph, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, the next item is the annual meeting, and this just lists annual meeting requirements. But what we have each year is we have an annual meeting, which we have called the organizational meeting. But it was interesting today because I was looking up trying to get a handle on what the exact order of the voting was, election of officers and so forth that we had. And we do have rules of procedure that outlines us doing it for each of the secretary, chairman, vice chairman, FOIA officer in December. But then the zoning ordinance says that our organizational meeting is in January, except it only covers chairman and vice chairman, I believe. Is that your understanding?
FOIA,
Yep.
the ordinance or the
No, the
bylaws?
ordinance.
No, our
The ordinance is
procedures are,
chairman and vice chairman.
So I mean, I thought there was one advantage to waiting on a portion of that to January was that we would know who or what the Board of Supervisors had done on the Planning Commission representative, in case that made any difference. But also, we have run into a couple of times where the ordinance and was at odds with our procedure, and I think we've been directed to go to the ordinance. So, I don't know, I'm throwing it out there.
We changed the procedure based on the requirement put on us by the county manager to make a recommendation for the planning commission
Correct.
in advance of our annual meeting. It had always been done at the annual meeting before. So the board agreed that, we'll just change the annual meeting to December, make all those decisions, which in actuality is something that maybe the other boards ought to think about also, in that it's kind of like the presidential election. I mean, you elect the person, but it gives them a month to get ready to assume the position. The way we've done it previously, you come into the meeting, you don't know who the chairman's going to be. And you've had a previous chairman that has set an agenda, but then the new, if you elect a new chairman or whatever, they're suddenly bound to this agenda that they had nothing to do with. So we're kind of taking, I think we're taking a leadership role. And that a better way to do it is to set it up in December so that people assume the positions in January, but they're prepared for it now. It gives them a month to, get their act together or realize what what they want to do with the position, their responsibilities, and whatever. So I think we should just, we did this, and knowing that the ordinances were going to be changed, and obviously the ordinance needs to be changed to deal with this. But I think we should proceed ahead with our procedures, and it's because it's not that big a deal. And we're here, we've got it on the agenda. Let's take care of it and move ahead.
Are there any other thoughts on this?
Well, is there any requirement that we follow the zoning ordinance?
Probably. I mean, I would say probably.
I would almost venture to think that the ordinance would supersede any
That's
bylaws
what I would
because they're
think.
legislative decisions and,
And we're just organization, or just
Yeah.
how we run the meeting.
well, I don't disagree with you, Rob.
No.
I actually agree that December's probably more appropriate and we could probably recommend to change the ordinance to
Yeah.
match the bylaws. I'm kind of a stickler to following the ordinance.
Yeah.
I agree with that, except to the extent that we tried that 2 years ago, and
Well, no,
because basically the county manager said no.
Well,
You
that
have to
was-
get it. You were at the meeting. You have to do it now. And
Was that 2 years ago?
yeah, and they never changed the ordinance or whatever, but it was a requirement. It was an administrative requirement.
Well, but there's nothing said in the ordinance about when the planning commission representative is nominated. Timing wise, to my knowledge, because I did look at that. It doesn't, so we can definitely.
There's nothing in the ordinance that says anything about the planning commission.
Well, one of the planning commission members may be a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals, a representative, and
It's the other way around.
two of them. One may be a supervisor and one may be one of the members of the planning commission may be a representative from Board of Zoning Appeals, and one may be a member from the Board of Supervisors.
That's correct.
And so we would nominate a representative to the Planning Commission. And that, I think that was the reason we went to December, was to suit what turned out to be a new schedule of the county, which was kind of sprung on the day of that meeting. And so we did not get to nominate somebody that year.
Right, but it was based on an administrative requirement. And that, to my knowledge, the request had not come from the Board of Supervisors on that. It came through the county manager.
He just notified us that they were going to be making their appointment at the.
Yes, irregardless of what we did. So and that was a change from, from past history. I mean, for how many years was it?
Well, I mean, yeah. So, but that was a change that we reasonably needed to accommodate. I mean, because otherwise we would never have a nomination if we just waited till January.
Well, we always, okay. Like I said, they always have in the past. That's the point I'm trying to make. Is that there's been some,
I think there were other reasons. I think not. It was just, it came all of a sudden. And it was that day we got an email that said, hey, we're going to nominate, you need to do one tonight.
Yeah.
And we didn't do it, and then we didn't get that. We didn't make the nomination that year. I mean, we did make a nomination the previous year that I don't think they followed.
I think we made nominations
And then
in all the previous years.
No, we have made nominations in all the previous years, but they just considered it at the February meeting in all the previous years.
Right.
And then they changed it. But the ordinance does talk about the chairman and vice chairman, I believe. I don't know if it even says secretary.
It does not say secretary, and in reading through it, it says something about a clerk. Do we have a clerk?
Well, I think the secretary is probably acting as the clerk, I believe.
It's, it's in, like I said, that's why I was looking at the county ordinance going, the county ordinance was written who knows when, and yes, it is still code because it's there. So it really doesn't apply to what we do. It's just like what the FOIA officer. There's no FOIA officer mentioned in there either, but we do that.
Well, that's a requirement, a state requirement.
But it's not in our ordinance. We haven't changed our ordinance to, for so many years, and that's what it's coming down the pike, and finally we're going to start doing this. But let's do whatever. We can.
Okay, so the question would be: is there any reason not to wait on the other officers that we don't have to do this time? The code says we should do that next time. That would be mine.
I think we should adhere to the code.
And then what we could do is make a recommendation.
Exactly what does it say?
Then in January each year.
As in the January meeting, so that could be that organizational. And I think that the representative to the Planning Commission would start in January, which is I'm assuming before our next meeting.
And hopefully these changes can be made to the ordinance and be
And so
recommended to
then
the
we-
planning
Yeah,
commission.
okay. I'm to a certain extent, I'm trying to make a point here in that, we have to look at the ordinance, we have to ensure that this ordinance gets looked at because there's confusion and it doesn't go along with our procedures, but I think our procedures are better stated than the ordinance, so.
So maybe the ordinance could be brought.
So,
But if we just gloss over it, then it may never get changed. And then we'll do like we had been doing, or the supervisors had been doing for 30 years, doing something that wasn't in the code, in the ordinance, which was the annual
oh, I agree.
appointment of the representative.
Well, I think your point is actually more of the crux of the matter, which is we need to have planning commission rep. That's probably the more imperative decision.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, yes, we want to do that, but I thought we could handle the other things. You know, I would be in favor of handling the other things, but we're not in agreement on that, and I can understand why. And perhaps by next year, with a rewriting of ordinances coming up, that we can get things in alignment, and the world will be a better place.
Well, it'll be a happier place.
Yes.
I do agree though, in general, that December's probably better.
Well, the only, if people, I guess our board changes in October, is that right?
Or what?
Our membership tends to change in October.
Our membership is going to change.
Well, no. I mean,
Everybody's going to change all
We're
at the
all
same
on
time. It's so,
different
that, and that's something
Yeah,
else that's
it's
well,
different.
okay, we've got 3 members now who,
I'm
No.
October, I
You.
think.
we have all 5 of us. All 5 of us are going to come up in the same year now.
We're at the same time
Yeah.
as
oh, you're at the same time. Okay, and you were in when?
Well, the actual appointment was in
August or
March,
something?
but we didn't learn about it till later.
you know, it was.
So when does your term actually begin?
I think June.
Yeah, I think it doesn't, yeah.
Okay, well,
Sometime around there, yeah.
so as a practical matter, just like,
Something not October.
why does the Board of Supervisors have an organizational meeting in January? Because that's when new members start. And I didn't know if there'd be any thought of when is it likely that we would have all of our membership resolved and not, the month before a new membership change. So that might be something to look at, is also the terms, because as I read in it, one had a 1-year term, one had a 2-year term, one had a 3-year term, 1 4, 1 5, so they staggered. So every year,
Correct.
a new member. Well, we've done away with that.
Well, the reason we did away with it is because we failed to recognize people, expiration dates or whatever. So, I mean, we basically failed to follow the system. And what's happened now is what you don't want to happen.
Well,
Is that right now, 5 years from now, everybody at this table,
No, I thought they were on 1 and 2-year terms respectively, right?
well,
You weren't appointed for
Were
5
you?
years.
I was appointed when David's expired.
for a 5-year term though.
For-
5-year
I
term.
believe.
Everybody's on a 5, that's what I'm saying.
Oh,
Yeah, so,
I thought it was 1 and 2 years.
No,
well, no, it
the
was,
judge could have done that, but he didn't.
well, see, what was going to originally happen, the original members would be 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year. And then as they rotated, then each one would get a 5-year term.
Right.
And so then you'd have a term expiring each year.
Right.
So what did happen this year is we just basically now have 3 brand new
Yeah,
members.
Jennifer's, did hers actually expire or she just left? the
She
town?
left when it expired. Yeah, I think all of the terms that have been filled were new terms. I don't think there was anybody who took over a partial term.
No.
That can happen, but I don't think that.
No, it's something that's been happening, it happened over time in that because, like I said, the expiration dates were not recognized and people didn't reapply and then they got appointed and it's evolved around now and we're in the situation that, like I said, the original ordinance was designed to expressly avoid, yet we managed to screw it up.
Well,
And so now everybody's going to expire in the same year.
I will say mine is not screwed up because I'm starting my 7th term. I just started it and I've not skipped. So I don't know how that happened. Unless I had a 10-year term.
Somehow,
You think so?
well, everybody here has just been appointed.
Right.
So we're all going to expire in the same year.
Okay. So, I mean, that is an issue and I don't know how we would deal with that. But I don't think there's much we can do. But because it is true. Well, we could potentially look at that, but I don't think we go back and say, okay, we'll cut you to 2 years and you to 1 year. I mean, I don't think we do that. So somehow we I don't know how you even do that. But the ideal would be if it was just once each year, and if we had a regular time each year. I guess in the long story made short, that would be right after that time would be seem the logical time to have a organizational meeting. You know, because then you'd have the new member,
Right.
and then you know, starting a term rather than someone just going out and who wouldn't be eligible. But anyway, so are we reasonable to just go ahead and do the planning commission and skip the others, defer them until next month? And then if we would like to make some recommendations as to how the ordinance would be changed, I'm sure we could easily codify that. So we would follow so the ordinance would follow with our, for now.
I'll make a motion to proceed with selecting our representative to the planning commission and deferring the officer selection until January, strictly to align with the ordinance.
I second it.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And then along with that, although it doesn't need a motion, maybe you can come forward with either just cut and paste the part of the rules, out of our rules about the organizational meeting, and maybe that can just be submitted to the planning commission. I'd say would be a good idea.
Yeah.
The next item then, just to continue this, would be, do we wish to do this now, or do we want to wait until the end of the meeting, the planning commission? Is it not really, just go ahead and do it now? Okay.
I don't see why not.
Well, I mean, first, why don't you ask the question, is there anybody here for the public hearing, including the applicant?
Well, what do you mean, to talk about the applicant? The applicant's not here, right? Okay, and I don't think is anybody here to speak on that?
But we didn't do the minutes yet or anything.
Yeah, okay,
Kind of
well.
getting ahead of ourselves.
Okay, well, I guess all that we will be doing is the minutes, and then the rules of procedure. Okay, so if we're going to do the planning commission representative, I just wanted to say a couple of things about that, just because I've been giving it a fair amount of thought. I've received a few phone calls and so forth, and about it. And our history in the last few years has been where there's been a little disconnect with the Board of Supervisors, because I think previously it was sort of just, whatever the word is, it just was whoever we put forward was appointed. And that changed a few years ago, and I mean, we can get into why, it doesn't really matter, but so we had a period of time where the supervisors asserted their preference over the nominee that we had made, and maybe it was a controversial individual or whatever, but I think that is unfortunate, because I think anyway, I'm going to also go back to how we had done things over the years. And when we started, and when I started, which nobody's bound by that, because I don't even remember when that was, but we had a little system where the planning commission representative was rotated. So we did it every 2 years, was nominally the idea that a new member who had never done it before, we would nominate that person, and typically they would go on. Now, at that time, you had, like, Werner Krebser was on the planning commission, and everybody seemed to love being on the planning commission. So at the end of the 2-year term, there might be, we're in the middle of, doing some paragraph or something, I need to be on there another year. So we'd make exceptions for that. But the general thing was that we would rotate through, and sometimes, the planning commission or the powers that be weren't necessarily happy with who we put forward, but, you know, we did get that person, and I think that was valuable to us and the member, because the membership would rotate through and get a feel for how the planning commission worked. And so, you know, I've thought a lot about this when we attempted to put David on a couple times. I mean, it was sort of his turn in a sense. And I know this isn't codified or anything, but, well, I do think right now, if we look at whose turn it would be Ron's turn. And, I mean, I hope, don't take this the wrong way, because I don't mean it in any way that's wrong, but you know, you seem to be a little controversial, and maybe that they might not follow our recommendation driving factor behind who we recommend, but I would like to think that we would get a member, you know, that we recommend to the board, and you are kind of up, you know, as far as your turn. So, I mean, where we go with that, I don't know exactly, except that would be logically, and as I understand it, a fair way to do it. I have done it a couple of times in the past, and I haven't done it in a while. We have a couple of new members, and who, you know, I would think ideally the new members would become more experienced before, you know, that would just, and that's all. If there's looking forward, the idea of rotating through. And I'd love it if we could just submit somebody and they just get approved, really. I mean, I would love that. I would think that would be very nice. And I think that would be a good way of, you know, working together. I know Ron, you've taken the BZA class, very serious about studying. You work hard. Anyway, I just wanted to give that background. And I'm not sure about, I know that there is some thing about putting a brand new member on. I'm not sure that that's a good precedent to really,
No, I think the fairness argument is really compelling.
So I get the feeling that it is possible to get approved. I don't think it's impossible.
Do you think if we submitted maybe who our pick is and maybe a backup to try to usurp them picking whoever they wanted? Is that a possibility? Could we vote like a primary and maybe a backup or something like that?
No, I think you should just do what you do. Just do somebody.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, you know, the rest of us, you know, any one of us could be a backup and that would be fine.
But we wouldn't verbalize that.
No, I think just put Ron's name in the pool.
Or
I'm
maybe-
happy to make the motion. And, would you like to do it? I guess that's the.
Well, I mean, I feel like he does, right? Am I misreading you? You would like to do it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm interested. And I would just like to say that our last individual that we nominated, who was approved and became the chairman and finally got the comp plan through, kind of says something for our board. We sent him somebody that got the job done.
And it was the third, I think it was the third try sending him, which is
One, two,
innocent.
yeah,
Maybe. Okay. And that, I mean, but he did not get renewed on this board. So we ended up with a situation where we had no representative.
Right.
And
he was our nomination and he got the job done.
I don't want to be in that position where we lose our
Yeah, but-
representative period.
Well, what I was concerned about, part of what I was getting at is just if we do not have a representative, I mean, I would like to think that we would preserve that. Because I think it is helpful if someone can bring our
I agree.
perspective to
Yeah,
the
I agree.
board, but also to bring, because usually the planning commission representative has made a, like a report to us about, which is helpful from time to time. Now, it does seem like the planning commission is not making as many recommendations as they have, is that we're holding the public hearings, I guess. They're not holding as many public hearings. So, I guess that's my little piece. So if that's what the board, would like to do, is to take a motion and put somebody forward.
Well, I move that Ron be made representative on the.
So we would nominate him.
Yep.
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion? No. All in favor? Okay.
Thank you. And just let me say that my view on this is I represent this board, and I tend to communicate with the board and carry that communication to the planning commission.
I don't need to sign this, do I? Everybody doesn't have to sign this. Okay.
I think this is old business on the meetings, but just to circle back on, was there some kind of recognition for David? Did we discuss?
I think we did, but I don't know.
There was a motion to recognize,
That
and
was some
it's
type of
sort of gotten
certificate.
lost in the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
Why don't we revive that for the January meeting, and we'll see if we can get some type of certificate or something.
I think that would be nice.
Because there's both, there's three now.
Oh, right?
Yes,
Because we never
absolutely.
did one for
Absolutely.
Dr. Matthews. And
Jennifer?
And quite honestly, the supervisors have done one for Jennifer Matthews,
Oh, they have?
but that's
Okay.
the only one,
oh.
which is also interesting.
Okay.
The other two are also January.
Oh, they are on your schedule?
For the board.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, sure. No problem. Okay, so we'll just put that into January, and I'll make that note. I hope I don't forget again. Okay, so the next item then is September 23rd minutes, and I don't care if you want to table them because I was so late getting them out. But
No, I read them.
okay,
No, I've got no,
I move approval of the minutes from September 23rd meeting.
okay. And did you see any double negatives? Or?
I didn't, I
Oh,
probably.
no, okay, I'm probably okay. Okay. And then the next item is the minutes from November 19th that Julie did. And I must say, these are spectacular looking.
Yeah, right.
They,
just have a good mentor.
I use Michelle's format.
is that right? Well, and I don't know, have you got the things to look darker in some of the lines?
No, those are real tricks.
That's pretty amazing. Okay. And did this, does anybody have any, Jennifer used to really hone in on the,
I was going to say, I have on the 23rd, I have a one-word change. It would be in the fourth paragraph down, last sentence, where it says, Chris and Ron agreed to put to writing the job description for purposes of soliciting a secretary. That sort of has a bad ring to it, and I would like to say employing.
Oh,
If you look up the
Okay.
definition of soliciting,
okay, I wasn't thinking of that. But
obviously,
engaging a secretary?
employing, you know.
Employing, okay. Okay. That's, okay. Is there anything else in that one? And Julie's, I don't know. Bill, your last name I struggle with a little bit because I forgot to double M's.
Yeah, it's, I would have chosen a shorter one, but I haven't.
But you were given what you were given. Is it, did we have a motion to approve these minutes or accept?
I so moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So the question on the next one, the Ford Tourist Home, and they're local, aren't they? So they just, they never checked to see if the meeting was on?
Mr. Chairman, real quick, did we do the annual meeting discussion?
Well, I think we agree to move that to,
Is that going to January as well?
January.
With the officer discussion?
yeah. with the
Okay,
office.
sorry.
I don't know if we did a motion. Did we make that a motion? I think we did.
I think we did. I wasn't clear that it included the meeting schedule as well.
Oh, the meeting.
Yeah, that is, I mean, it's all
Yeah.
lumped in together.
Well, let's say the meeting in January will be the fourth Wednesday.
That's why in the past, the January meeting has always been included in the meeting schedule because that ends up being the annual meeting.
Is that in the ordinance that we do the meeting schedule? Because we could do that today.
Yeah, it's
That's
the
part of the
officers.
annual meeting.
Well, no, but I mean, is that listed? It only lists the election.
Correct.
Does it also list the dates of the meeting?
At its first meeting in January of each year, the BZA shall set the time, date, and place for its
Okay,
regular
okay,
monthly
yeah.
public meetings and also elect the chairman or vice chairman.
Okay, so Michelle, has there been a posting relating to the January meeting anywhere? Has that been posted or?
I believe it was posted in last year's.
Okay, so when we do that, we would do the entire year plus the,
Did we not, because I don't have it with me, did we not include the January meeting on last year's?
that's what she said.
Yeah, we did.
We did, oh, okay.
She said
That's what I
all of
thought.
2021.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no new posting requirement.
Right.
Okay,
Okay, I'm sorry for that.
okay,
Yeah.
good. So the next item, although I think we've determined that there's no representative here for this application, and it's not really our habit to hear applications in absentia, I mean, when the applicant is not around. But was this advertised for this month?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it was.
Okay, so if we covered it in January, is there a advertising problem?
You would need to open the public hearing and then table it.
Table it.
In order to be able to hear it in January?
Correct.
Okay.
Would it be possible to get the staff report?
We have one, right? Oh, okay. Well, so we'll open this application. And I'm going to get hung up here because what I really would like to do is have it so the public could speak at the next meeting.
Okay.
So what I wish to do is however that is accomplished, I would like to do that. So if we open it and recess the hearing without opening the public comment period, I'm happy to do it that way. But
Okay.
I really would like it so that when we're actually hearing it, and there might be people here to speak, that they are allowed to speak. And
I think we can do so. We can
Well,
just.
if there are some, I've discussed it with everybody, there are problems that we have with this, and they're administrative paperwork
But you're talking about
problems.
with the application, not
Right.
with having the
Not
public
with,
hearing.
not with what they want to do necessarily, but if we follow the basically prescribed procedure for the application and the public hearing, we really don't make our comments until after the public hearing is completed.
Right.
But in this case, I think we need to discuss basically the problems with the application that could be corrected prior to a January meeting. We could have the public hearing, and if we we move ahead.
There was then a public hearing on this at the planning commission.
Not sure.
They voted on it, right?
Yeah, they
There was a
voted.
preliminary review.
No, I don't think, I
There's
think
a
they
vote,
was,
isn't there a vote
There's
sheet
a
on it?
vote in our packet.
yeah, there was a vote sheet, wasn't there?
I was just wondering what that resulted from, because I think they,
Yeah, there was a vote sheet on it.
If you'll look, under the purpose, I always make a notation whether it's a preliminary review or the public hearing.
oh, so the vote is on the preliminary review?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, so there was, okay.
So they haven't appeared at any time.
Oh, I see.
They did appear at that meeting in which the planning commission made this recommendation. They were present at that meeting.
Maybe they thought that's all they needed.
No, they were notified again of this
Okay,
meeting.
Okay, well, I mean, we've opened this hearing.
We have.
Well, I guess we're talking about it.
Not necessarily. The public hearing is not open until we say the public hearing is open. We're discussing, that's the point I'm trying to make right now, is that there are things that I think we need to
No,
discuss.
I'm with you on that. I'm just saying
But
that,
we don't want to open the public hearing. I think we can discuss them prior to that and then
You can open the
then
public
adjourn it.
hearing. and-
then adjourn it and wait till the next meeting, open the public hearing. We'll have the applicant here, hopefully, and the public can make their comments or whatever, and then we can proceed.
okay, well, this,
But I don't want to, I think it would be kind of ridiculous to go into January and then bring up these issues on the application itself, which is not complete and has a number of problems here that can be corrected before January.
okay,
Because quite honestly, I will not vote on this issue as with the application the way we received it.
well, okay, so what you're proposing to do, okay,
My understanding is that you can open the public hearing,
but it's not the public
And-
comment.
right,
Correct,
I
and you
just
can
wanted to-
rearrange the order, the usual order,
correct.
and allow for comments from the board to precede the comments.
If you want to do it that way, that's fine.
And the comments from the board could result in a request to them for some more information.
Right.
Okay, so there's nothing wrong with it,
Okay.
just so long as the public comment.
I'm not trying to, yes, I'm well aware of that.
Okay, as a definition thing, and I know I keep saying the same thing, but I don't believe otherwise. A public hearing is a hearing on something where the public can speak. But I think the entire time you're talking about it is a public hearing.
Right.
That's my opinion. I know you disagree, but I think that the public comment is a portion of the public hearing.
Correct.
Because- because you have,
That's exactly right. It's just-
my understanding is a public meeting is what all of these things are, public hearing. A public hearing is a public meeting in which the public can speak on the topic. That they're allowed to speak on the topic. And so therefore, if we have a public hearing, that's my point. So I think we can open whatever you want to call it. Okay, we're talking about the subject of a public hearing, which is this application. Because that's the situation under which we discuss it.
That's not my understanding of it.
Okay, so that being,
Is that the understanding you got from the,
It is.
yeah, we,
I had the class today.
well, that's what I mean, is
yeah.
but you open the public hearing,
Correct.
Well, see, you're using.
and that's when you deal with the applicant, and you deal with the public, and then you close the public hearing.
But the
Well-
public comment is a subset of the public hearing.
Yeah.
Correct.
So what
Correct.
you're,
Oh,
what
yeah.
you're talking about is a public comment, and you're using the term public hearing, when you might be better saying public comment period.
So I'm using the wording that
Okay,
is in the basically in the ordinances or whatever, and,
Okay.
and,
Well,
I would
anyway,
actually defer to the Board of Supervisors chair in that she has done them, in that you open the public hearing and you take comments and then you close the public hearing. I mean, that's the,
but then the question is, all the following conversation is still part of the public hearing.
Right.
but you can't take any, but you cannot take any comments from the public
No.
after the public hearing is closed. And
And I-
that was the
Yeah,
problem
but
we had
nobody's
the last
closing
time.
the
But
public
I don't
hearing.
necessarily agree with that, but I'll defer to you on that. So
Okay.
I don't want to worry about it.
As long as you don't close the public hearing.
So what I would
Correct.
like to do is open.
Oh, good, there you go.
Okay, so here's the point. If we do not open the hearing, we cannot
Table.
recess it until, I think recess may be the right word, is that right? Okay, we
Oh,
cannot,
yeah, okay.
we cannot recess it,
Oh, no, I was not proposing that we didn't
so we
open the
have
public
to
hearing
open the hearing on
Right.
this thing. Now, we
at
will-
some point in time.
Now, in order to preserve the rights of the public to speak, we will not open the public comment portion at this meeting. We will open it at the next meeting. But I still would maintain that we should be able to open it at both meetings. But, again, no point in arguing about that.
That's okay.
But, let's open it. I'd like to hear, or we'd like to hear, what your comments are about what they could do to make this a complete application. If we make a list.
Well, I'm going by the list that we have.
Okay.
We have our checklist for special use permit. And it is a checklist, and it has to be checked off and signed by the applicant. With this application, we don't have one.
You're not looking at this chart.
That is not this.
Okay.
And it starts out with a completed and signed copy of this checklist in the application. The application that we have is not complete. It's all these blank spaces, that is not complete. If there's, when you're filling it out, I mean, it wants you to write something on the line. You don't pick and choose. So it's not a complete application.
Now, as an example, when you're talking about the deed and the evidence of title, they have provided a plat and title insurance, which I find interesting because, I mean, that is...
Well, then we need to change our checklist, because our checklist has a copy of the deed to the property.
Okay, so why don't we write that down?
So we don't have a copy
Okay,
of the deed to the property, and that has been an issue at times, or even we've had people come in and they haven't had the notarized authorization of the owner of the property,
Right.
and we've sent it back and said, it's got to be notarized by the owner in order for us to accept it, in order to make a ruling on the application. So, I mean, we have a checklist,
okay,
everybody follows the checklist.
okay, so I think we're in agreement on that. So let's just make a list or somehow recite the list of what we're looking to do. If you would.
Okay, in my recommendation also, I don't know why, it is what it is, but the date on the application of the individual that signed it is from November 30th of 2017. Right there at the bottom.
Yeah, Michelle, what's up with that? Did they just submit it a long time ago and it just sat in the office?
It's an
They
old
had-
app,
They had the older application and they completed it and just now submitted it.
Oh, okay. So
but they didn't complete it.
So they really, okay, sure.
Or at least the copy we have isn't completed.
Yeah.
That application did not have a checklist attached to it. That is something that was done in recent years since then.
It was
So-
like-
Done in recent years since then.
Well, there's a checklist
Correct.
on the back, right?
Okay, so
That is one that they've done.
can I digress just for a second? Because this is so interesting, that this record of decision by the planning commission, recommendation for approval, that
Yes,
without a hearing.
correct. They're not required to hold a public hearing.
So they can still recommend approval.
They can simply just review the application and make a recommendation. They are not required to hold a public
Okay,
hearing.
oh, sorry, okay, I didn't realize that. Okay, wow. Wow. Okay. Okay, so we're talking about a deed.
Well, a completed application, and I would say that it needs to be a recent application that,
Okay, so updated.
because I mean, even because of the notations on the application about have you notified the neighbors and are your real estate taxes current, and it says yes and yes, but that was in 2017, so there's no guarantee that in 2020 that information is true.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. Sure. So is that, and then we're missing the deed?
Well, yes, we need
But does this
copy of the deed.
Does this qualify as the?
That's not a deed.
Hold on, no, I'm not saying that. The site plan?
What?
This qualifies as the site plan, right?
Yeah, that I believe, I mean, yes.
Okay.
It does have, that has the property lines, the abutting streets, the locations, it's to scale.
Okay. Deed, and complete the application and recent date. Okay.
Yes, on that part.
Is that adequate now, or what else?
Oh, well, then there's the issue with the health department that, and our purpose, part of our purpose in our findings is health and safety. And this property, according to the health department, has it doesn't have a well, it's got a spring with a cistern, and the perk on the property is for a 3-bedroom, it's a 3-bedroom perk, but the house itself has 5 bedrooms, and the guest house is another bedroom, so there are 6 bedrooms
Right.
on a 3-bedroom perk right now.
Okay, I don't see them correcting that by the next meeting. Do you?
Not by the next meeting,
No.
but still.
But,
So it's, and the recommendation from the health department has to do with the testing of the water. And my feeling is that we need to see a test of the water. We don't want to issue the permit and then have them go test the water and find out that, the water is, full of E. coli or whatever.
It's GRE or something.
If we're issuing a permit and we need to know, that's why we get a health department report. We need to know that the water's safe and that the sewage system is adequate. That's why we get the report.
okay, so why don't we just request a water test?
Yeah.
Well, that and as the revision by Medj on the 15th is that because it's a 3-bedroom perk, they need to go to the clerk of the circuit court and get an addendum, I'm not sure exactly what they put on the title, that basically states that the property has a 3-bedroom perk, even though it has 6 bedrooms on the property. So anybody buying it or the people that finance or whatever know that, what that situation is. And you know about that, Alex, is that, the bank doesn't want to finance a 5-bedroom house if only 6 people can live in it.
Well, I have a question. This is with, we have the 6
And that's not our.
I understand the 6 bedrooms and the 3-bedroom perk. This bothers me a lot because we have had situations where we've granted people permission to do something and then they've gone completely off the deep end and overdone it. And what I'm wondering is if we say that there's that this is acceptable to do this for 6 people on a 3-bedroom perk. What do we have to ensure that they will abide by this? Just the way we ask is, that doesn't seem
I have
sufficient.
a similar problem with what you're describing, but my solution is that we would make the approval contingent upon something, and I think it's more than just a promise not to have more than 3 people.
Yeah, I don't think that's
Because
enough.
I don't think that works. I think we probably possibly would want to just see a drain field that's adequate to the task.
Well, this conditional permit that Medj is suggesting is
Can you speak
pretty
up just a little
significant.
bit?
Yeah, but, I mean, okay, maybe that's a good option for them, but I think that's crazy.
I think it's crazy too.
So-
Yeah, that's
It
what
changes their loose use of their property forever.
But
It's
I think,
crazy, I didn't hear.
well, I think it's, well, not crazy, but I mean, I think it's pretty, have a 5-bedroom house you can't use.
That's my point, in that if they want the permit, they
Okay.
come back to us, water test, and the paperwork that says
Then they ruin their property.
they don't get,
What if we don't grant it? You say, come back, bring us this thing from the circuit court that says you're restricted. And then what if for some reason we don't grant it? Then they've not ruined, but they severely crimped their property and they don't get the permit. And I think it's logical to make that a condition of.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go along with that.
I mean, if we do that, I think another alternative is just put a couple more lines in your drain field.
That's entirely up to them. That's
Well, no, that might be up to us.
Yeah, I agree with Alec. I think that it's,
That
they
might
ought
be,
to be, their drain field and their usage should be consistent with one another. I mean, you can't just say, okay, you can have 6 bedrooms and a 3, we would be just saying, you can have 3 bedrooms and a 6-bedroom drain field, and
now the water I can
we
live.
can't stop that.
The
The only way
water-
we could stop it is by asking that they have a sufficient drain field. That's not really, I think, our only option.
The water I could live with. The other one is, or I suppose they could just put a single system for the accessory dwelling.
Well, that would be,
They
go
could
a
do
long
that.
way.
And then we don't worry about the.
Well, I mean, it would, that, okay, the contingency could be based on,
Out of the drain.
a water test. Well, basically, it could be based on the health department recommending, a new assessment by the health department as to the condition of the water and the adequacy of the sewage system.
We could say they need to have annual testing done on their water. I mean,
Whatever is the recommendation of the health department.
But the thing is,
Yeah, if they thought that was okay, we could be on that.
Because that's who's gonna have to make the call on it anyways. I mean, when you test the water or whatever in that situation, that information.
well, I think we can arrive at something at the next meeting. But what you brought up are good points. I think there are alternatives. I think possibly if they're willing to agree to this restriction, I guess we might be able to live with that. But, I think that's kind of extreme, and I think there are other options. One would be to put a small system in for that house that's its own.
Whatever they want to do.
And then the other would be just to put
Yeah, but agreeing with Midge's suggestion doesn't really solve the problem, because that just affects
basically-
whether they want to
basically-
sell it, which is not particularly fair to them, but also it doesn't really address the problem that.
Well, she's trying to
I
make do with what is there, which isn't adequate. I mean, she's.
No, I understand what she's
it's-
trying to do.
It's not our job to come up with the solution.
Well,
Basically, the point I'm trying to get to here is that we just need to communicate to them that these problems exist and they're going to have to deal with it. How they deal with it is entirely up to them.
Right.
But but until they, but at this point in time, we're not going to take any action until something, these problems issues are dealt with.
I think we can require that they be dealt with in a certain way. I think that's reasonable, because it would just be like, okay, hey, go put in a new drain field, come back, see if we want to give you the permit. I mean, they don't want to do that. I mean,
I'm not saying we recommend anything. That's what I'm saying is that,
we have to have something that suits us.
Well, we can come up with a for instance. We don't have to say you have to do this, but we can say, well,
this would be
there's
one
certain
way.
ways to approach this. And we need to have conformity with the, the weight, the load and the receptacle.
Like what we did with Cliff Miller, they could have either subdivide 2 10-acre lots to put a house on each lot, or get a special exception so they're not subdivided. And so I don't know what he's done. I assume he's
yeah, and in that case, those were basically there were pretty much 2 choices.
2 options.
Right. And
Here's 2
in this
options.
case,
Do the deed.
there are numerous options. I mean, they could.
Well, do the deed restriction or bring it up to snuff. That would be.
Right. But like I said, there are numerous ways they could do
So we
that.
can
So
require,
they could put in a separate septic system for the guest house
but we could.
if they so wanted to do that, and that's all we care about. We don't care about the house.
Yeah,
Right, so
All
we
we care
could,
about is the guest house.
so we could give them all 3 alternatives.
Yeah, that's
And
fine.
I don't think they need to affect any one of them until, I mean, this is a likely one will give them the permit, but, I mean, there is always the risk that they don't get the permit. And why make them spend a lot of money? That would be, they seem willing to do this, right?
Or, that's where they've got options now. They come back to the public hearing and they say, they pick one, whatever, and they say, and then we go, okay, that's fine, we will pass it, and then we put the restriction on their choice of how they're gonna handle it, and when that's completed, then they get their permit. But we don't, to pass something that has a whole bunch of choices in it, it's too confusing. So just let them know that there's issues.
Well,
They got a problem, they gotta solve it and bring it back.
Right, and so they come back with a solution, what they're gonna do, and then we will pass the permit based on them completing that, and that takes care of the problem that you're talking about, and that they have assurance then that they're gonna get the permit if they do the item that they chose.
okay, and I would just add that I think we're smart enough to give 2 or 3 alternatives, and they can pick their alternative. I don't think that's a problem. I mean, it's not.
That's what you wanted.
I'm looking for the septic to be, I mean, we'll probably accept this, what they suggested. But there are a couple of water tests that just showed the water was potable. And then the application updated and completed. And then we'll hear it next time.
Are we requesting them to do it in the current format? Is that what we're requesting?
Yeah, I think so. Well, and certainly
Okay.
dated, yeah.
Current format being,
Well, this has David Dameron's name on it.
there's, like I said, the form is incomplete, so just have them fill out a new form. I mean, that's no big deal, but it's on the current form then, and have them fill out the checklist sheet.
Okay.
I got
We
it.
got it. Okay, so she's got that.
So I'll make a motion to table the
Well,
public
no,
hearing?
I don't.
Or,
Do we table it or recess it?
recess, isn't it?
We need to adjourn it, I believe, to a specific date.
'Cause to
and time
table something-
and place.
Doesn't tabling it mean you haven't opened it?
We need to continue it.
continue.
Continue it.
Right.
Make a motion to continue the public hearing.
And we're
January
continuing
7th.
it to the January,
Correct.
what's the meeting, 27th?
January 27th.
Okay, so we're continuing this to the January 27th meeting.
Yeah.
Is there a second to that?
I second that.
Okay, so Steph, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So the next issue is the rules of procedure.
Okay, it's not a huge deal, but it's something, and I'm actually going to I see us as, at times we can take on a leadership role or whatever. And the state code in regards to minutes, which we are not, we have a problem with minutes. Board of Supervisors has a problem with minutes. And it's a FOIA issue in that when the minutes are 6 months behind, it's very difficult for people to get pertinent information on issues that they want to research or whatever. The 2.2-3707.1 of the Code of Virginia, and this applies to posting of minutes for state boards and commissions. But the meat of it is that the draft minutes of meetings shall be posted as soon as possible, but no later than 10 working days after the conclusion of the meeting. Final approval meeting minutes shall be posted within 3 working days of the final approval of the minutes. And my proposal is that we add this to our procedures, which puts us on notice that when we have a meeting, 10 days from the meeting, the draft minutes have to be available to the public. It's a transparency thing, and it's a FOIA issue.
Were mine not in a timely fashion?
What? Oh, excuse me. I have actually.
No, I'm kidding.
I'm reticent here. I have copies of it.
Oh boy. Oh.
Of the state statute.
Oh,
Like I said,
but we're not a state board.
It doesn't make any difference. We can adopt the wording to our ordinance because out of respect for FOIA,
Okay. But
we need to do this.
I would just note that.
And all of the boards in the county should do it, but we can take the leadership role and put it into our procedures and do it.
Okay. So this is optional, though, right?
I mean, optional.
Well, it's not a requirement for us.
Right.
We're not.
Only if we put it into our ordinance, but like I said,
I hear you, but you were presenting it, I thought, as kind of an obligatory thing. And it's not.
What do you mean?
Well, it's not, it doesn't apply to us.
I think
Yeah,
he wants to make it.
He wants to make it apply to us.
I'm saying we take this wording and put it into Article 8, reference 8-4 of our procedures that says that this is how we will handle our minutes.
Okay. I mean, that's not going to hurt
It's
anybody.
like I said, it's a transparency thing.
Well, I would definitely fail
Yeah, I do too.
in miserable.
And we can, we may want to,
Actually, I accept being fired from the position.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, whatever. Okay, but do we have to, are you looking for us to take action on this?
not tonight. Consider it, and we can bring it up in our next meeting. And I'm not sure exactly. I'm not sure of the exact procedure we have to follow to make a change in the
No, but I'm just
policies and
thinking that
procedures.
having
So.
a draft of the minutes when the agenda goes out is plenty of time, and if people are interested in looking at that, they'll do that. I just think 10 working days. I mean, maybe, I'm sure there are people who are much more efficient than I am, but.
I like to do things at the very last minute. In case you have.
Yes, I mean, we all do. That's the point. And that's why you need something like this in your policies and procedures. And that's why the state probably put this into their policies and procedures, because it does force you to get the information out, and the information needs to go out in a timely fashion.
Now, as far as FOIA goes, where does this information have to be at the 10 days?
Because if I want FOIA information on the meeting,
No.
or if I'm the FOIA officer,
No, wait. Does it go to the other members? It has to be posted somewhere for the public to see it in those kind
it can go on board docs.
So
I mean, those arrangements can be made, and like I said, I'm proposing, and I will make that recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, is that on board docs, that be included. So, because that way people go to a meeting, and they no offense to the video or whatever, but they don't want to sit down and watch a 2-hour video, but they'd like to know in a timely fashion what went on at the meeting. Right now, if I want to know what went on, particularly the supervisors' meetings, the supervisors' meeting in September or August or whatever, I can't look at the minutes because they're not to be found because they haven't been approved yet.
Well, but you wouldn't approve them until the next meeting. Okay, so a draft.
It has to do with draft minutes and approved minutes. Draft minutes, they're listed as draft minutes, so no, they're not accepted, but they're there for the public to look at and get the information.
But wouldn't the latest that you could really do that would be when the agenda was printed, right?
On the what?
The latest that could be done
The early.
recently was when the agenda would go out for the next meeting. It would go, preferably, obviously, you like it in 10 days, but I'm saying at the very latest, it should be when the agenda goes out. And it hasn't been meeting that.
If you're really good, you can do it the same day.
Well, yes, actually, if we go with this proposal, yes, whenever we put out the agenda, the minutes are right in there. So we,
Yeah, it should be-
they don't get put in at the last minute because they've been available for quite some time already in a draft form.
Right.
But they're not approved when they go out.
But
They're
they would
just
still be
draft.
No, it says draft across them. I mean, that's, it's just,
That's the
and
system they
that's
have.
acceptable procedure.
I mean, well, Julie was, I mean, I felt like that was timely. It wasn't 10 days after the last meeting, but, I mean, it was timely before the next meeting.
Minutes with the agenda.
Now, I hear what you're saying, except that people can come to the meeting. I mean, if they really want to know what's going on.
It's not the point.
Okay,
That's not transparency.
okay, well. Okay, well, let's just say that that's a good thing to discuss at the next meeting.
Yeah, that's like I said, but
We'll
I
think
think
about
we
that.
should, I think we're so happy to have Julie being secretary that whatever works for you.
Yeah, so, well, yeah.
Ideally, I agree 10 days is nice, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'll commit to doing them a week before the next meeting, but I think 10 days personally is just a little aggressive. so.
well, we can adjust the time frame on it.
But I definitely commit to doing them timely, so.
Yeah, I've, on the couple different boards I'm on, I mean, there's note made about when minutes are supposed to be. I think it's usually
That's
time.
the problem I'm trying to address here. It's a FOIA issue. You have to keep, FOIA has to do with the public being able to be
You know, but if
informed
they're
in
that
a timely
interested, they'll watch the
fashion.
video.
And we're not meeting that.
Or go to the meeting.
Ron, sorry for the
Well,
question. Are you the FOIA
but-
officer? Are you the FOIA officer?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I
right
thought
now.
Chris was.
But then, that's, and if you look around at other localities and whatever, they don't seem to have the problem with minutes that we do, in that, you can go, Culpeper, Madison, whatever, and their minutes, it may not be 10 days, but they're not 6 months behind.
Well,
I
6
mean,
months
that's
is not.
ridiculous.
That's not what we're
I mean,
talking
but it's
about.
one thing, I mean, if it actually got it there by the time the agenda came out, that would be a huge improvement.
Yeah, I agree.
Just a huge improvement, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think, I hear what you're
10 days
saying.
might be a little like.
Well, I think, I feel like if we never fail to get them out before or with the agenda for the next meeting, that would be a minimal standard, and I think that would be, that's adequate. And if we want to set a bar higher than that, maybe we can do that.
That's what we need to talk about, but at least there is a requirement that they be produced in a time, whatever timely fashion we choose to use.
And
Like I said,
my,
I just, like I said, the state seems to feel that 10 days is
and my
adequate, but,
stint as secretary taking minutes was a miserable failure.
Yeah. My stint on various.
I was hoping to get fired, and there, I was like I had tenure or something. So I'm happy that my miserable time in that is ended, at least for now, unless I mess up again. So is that, that may be everything, right?
Who's that?
Is there anybody have any? Oh, Bill, you had some questions about the BZA training.
But which,
The BZA training.
oh, right, yeah.
And I feel like you were sent an email.
Probably in the
Today.
last few days in the snow.
Today.
Wiped out my email.
That had the, you can click on Board of Zoning Appeals training
Mhm.
and,
Okay.
It's
And
through Virginia Commonwealth University. I didn't see any sessions scheduled for 2021, but just.
but I'm sure they will come up. And the county, you get paid, I mean, you don't get paid, but
Reimbursed.
reimbursed
Did you
for
pour
the
the
tuition
I
and
filled
even,
out-
What? Oh, you didn't, okay.
isn't there some
I
hotel?
asked for an expense one.
So, yeah, so you get reimbursed for some expenses and the cost of it. Now, if it's virtual, I guess you don't have to stay in a
Yeah, I
hotel.
trust it'll probably be virtual these days, but.
Yeah.
It's like $500.
Yeah, but
$500?
the county,
What?
no, the county will,
I know, but I
We have
got
to
to
know.
pay it in advance. I'm one of the people who are $500 away from disaster in this.
oh, you mean you, about.
I couldn't afford to
paying
fund
it.
the money,
Oh. Well, we could think about that.
but if somebody
We
wants
can
to
figure
be
it
a
out.
scholarship fund here.
No, I think we'll figure it out. Yeah.
Oh.
That sounds like a hurdle we can
Absolutely.
get over. Okay. So, yeah, I think that's a great idea to do that. And I did it many, many, many years ago.
It's a great course.
It is. Yeah,
And they
you
have-
learn, and in fact, it's the kind of thing that you can take, you could take it again in another year and you'd learn twice as much because, you know, you would,
But they do have little.
the questions come into your
refresher-
mind.
They have little sort of refresher kind of seminars from time to time. As I recall going to a few.
There's a planning commission one as well.
Yeah.
So, and then they have like some specialties like creative zoning approaches and things like that.
Oh, yeah, great.
Anger management. Isn't that, wasn't that?
Oh, no, that was in this one, wasn't it? Really trying.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, I guess that's all, unless there's something else. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I said,
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
It's been fun. We'll have to do this again. Next month.
Well, it looks like they're on for next month.
Yeah. We got something.